We're going to talk about DeFi. DeFi never fails to entertain. There's a hack in DeFi almost every day this past week. We're seeing inverse finance here exploited for 15.6 million. There was another one, Ola Finance. One of its implementations was hacked for, I think, something like 5 million, small. And then the big one, Ronin, the blockchain that powers Axie Infinity, hacked for over $600 million disclosed last week. So DeFi keeps giving the hits when it comes to exploits and large sums of money being pilfered from some of these protocols. I think that, the connective thread here for me is, hey, we're still in the experimental phase of DeFi. Watch out. Factor that into your decision-making calculus. You don't want to be the one whose money is getting removed through a smart contract exploit from some shadowy hacker in a stock photo. So it happens. It's happening a lot. I don't know if it's happening more than it had been in the past. But it kind of feels like that right now, just given the recency bias of some of these events. So I'm going to toss it straight to Adam on this one for his thoughts on this rash of DeFi exploits.
Yeah, I don't really know if this is a new thing. I think that this is a continuation of trend that we've seen. And it's always been kind of splotchy, right? Like, it's not like every single week there is a new hack that, breaks new records. It's more like projects come out, people take time to look at those projects. A certain number of people find things that they can then exploit to pull money out. And again, we're talking about like a little $5 million hack, right? But it's $5 million. Like, that's a pretty good payday relative to working any type of Joe job. So I mean, like, the kind of the incentives are there for this to happen. And if you want to kind of think about it from like a security perspective, really what you're looking at here is you're looking at a new technology that, by nature of locking up this type of money in it, is incentivizing people to find all of these problems. And so that's good for the ecosystem, and it's good for the technology in like an aggregate sense, because it's really kind of being battle tested in a way that, not many centralized projects are. And yet the losses are real. And especially when you're talking about a project like Axie Infinity, where the amount of losses are so significant. Again, like, if these companies weren't making money hand over fist and able to, kind of back it up with their giant war chests, then I think that you would be seeing more people who are feeling a little bit burned. But a lot of that is kind of being staved off. Zach?
Yeah, and you're talking about this resiliency. I think there is, again, some of that self-regulating aspect. We've seen that, especially for these huge, big ticket hacks, it's hard for the attackers to reap the rewards of doing so. And some of these smaller ones, I think some of these smaller ones kind of end up flying under the radar, right? We saw inverse finance, the money sort of pilfered from that protocol was immediately sent into Tornado Cash, which is an Ethereum mixer that makes the trail of funds much, much, much harder to track. I think that also happened today. We reported with some of the funds from the Ronin hack itself. So when we bring these privacy tools into the mix, some of the recovery efforts become a bit more challenging. But again, with these big hats, and we talked about this last week, right? The transition from black hat to gray hat to, oh, I'm a white hat now, tends to be the only sort of escape vector once someone makes it into the vault, gets all the money bags with the cash symbols on it, I guess Ether symbols in this instance, and is kind of stuck there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the rest of the funds as it relates to the big one here, the Ronin hack. But the other ones, those funds may not ultimately end up being tracked back to the attacker or attacker. So interesting to watch how these unfold on the recovery side. Jen, I saw your hand up though. Very curious for your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with both of you on everything you said. Every time we talk about one of these hacks, I think about the people who are affected. And I often ask the question on the show, like, what should people do? I mean, DeFi offers so many solutions for so many people that the traditional financial system doesn't. And now we're seeing a lot of these hacks saying that if you were affected by what's happened, you will get your money back eventually. So I zeroed in on the last sentence of this article. They said, Inverse plans to make a proposal to its DAO to ensure all wallets impacted by the price manipulation are repaid 100%. And it feels like these DeFi platforms and protocols just need to really kind of have this money waiting there for when they get hacked, because it's not an if at this point. There are bugs. We're moving fast. We're breaking things. And we're going to get hacked, and we need to ensure that we're not losing users and we're not losing customers. And so we're seeing that again and again. And I think it's just going to become the cost of doing business. But Zach, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I think the zoom out and the aggregate, right? We talk about sort of, okay, this is happening, it keeps happening. Oh my goodness. And I think, Adam, I think your point is very apt, right? Like in the long run here of this experimental phase of standing up these financial products in an internet native way, in the long run, this battle testing hopefully should be productive to sort of a safe industry that can be accommodating of the mainstream. It's not there yet. It's still a very small slice of the global population and even of like internet user population or even crypto owner population. It's a very small slice of the population. But in sum, if we zoom out and we look at this little blip of time as that experimental, oh man, we got to fix these problems phase, it could be potentially transformative. It could be potentially, beneficial to this industry as a whole. But right now, I think we're in the thick of just these smart contract bugs that are just getting people wrecked. And it's not good. It's not a good look. And not everyone is going to be patient with the perspective on this thing. So, Adam, I'm tossing it back to you.
Yeah, so it's honestly really fascinating, right? Because the technology adoption cycle pretty much always goes like this, which is to say that people who don't need the technology, but who are, like want to play with it, have the disposable time to mess with all the challenges, have the disposable income to pay far higher prices than the thing is really kind of worth once you get it to a commoditized state. Like that's normal. That's like cell phones, that's computers, that's literally any piece of technology, outside of maybe a toaster. And even the toaster probably had that period of time way back when, right? So when you're looking at this technology, it's actually not any different than any other. The difference that we do see, though, is the money, which is that if, I buy a toaster as an early adopter, right? Like there's no scam somebody can run on me to get my toaster to pay them a bunch of money that I stuck in it, right? Whereas with these DeFi contracts, that really is kind of what you're looking at. So we're in this period of time that's like Wild West on one side and, like completely unregulated gambling on the other side. And at the end of the rainbow, there's this dream that this thing turns into the new financial system in a way that cuts out all the bad actors, the too big to fails and all of the systemically important parts of the economy who really are just privileged actors within that particular system. And makes it such that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It just matters that, hey, this system exists that's out there. And if you want to use it, you can use it. But we're so far from that it just, again, we talked about this last week a little bit. Like when I look at this, I see gambling. I see people who have the ability in most cases to lose a lot of that money, accepting risk and in exchange for returns that are oftentimes far better than you can get outside of these types of systems. So I have limited sympathy when it comes to sort of people who participate in this type of way. Because I feel like, again, like if you're not a pretty well-educated actor, then you have no reason to be there and the incentives don't align for you to, unless you're so desperate to make a 15% yield on your money, right, that you're willing to overlook kind of all of this other stuff. So I have very mixed feelings about it. But again, I think that this is overall healthy and will to pass eventually.